And welcome back. Now, members of Parliament were not satisfied with former Eskom CEO De Ruyter's answers before Scopa yesterday. De Ruyter appeared before Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts to shed light on allegations that he made earlier this year around corruption, criminal cartels and other financial irregularities at the state-owned entity. Now, Scopa wants several people to appear before it to gain more information regarding some of this criminality at Eskom as revealed by De Ruyter. The former Eskom CEO also refused to provide the names of ministers believed to be involved in alleged criminal activity, and during an interview with journalist Annika Larson earlier this year, De Ruyter made allegations of maladministration, corruption and sabotage of infrastructure at Eskom. Scopa Chairperson Mkhuleko Hlengwa joins us now virtually to discuss yesterday's appearance of De Ruyter before the committee. Mr. Hlengwa, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you very much. Good morning, SK, to you and the viewers.
Now, Scopa invited De Ruyter to appear to discuss some of those allegations that were made during a television interview earlier this year. De Ruyter said to you, though, that he submitted information in good faith, but felt constrained in providing any more information pertaining to those allegations since he left Eskom. It seemed as though the committee members were frustrated, but let me ask you straight up, what the sentiment was regarding what transpired with De Ruyter yesterday.
Thank you very much. It would have been much easier if Mr. De Ruyter had been forthcoming. So I think at the outset, one must say it was a missed opportunity on his part. But I think and of course, members were frustrated simply because the answers are required in order to take this matter forward. But at the same time, I think it's important that we see this as a big step in the right direction, in the sense that we have taken the allegations off the street respectfully to the interview that happened and have placed them on a formal process, because Mr. De Ruyter is now in an institution of authority with constitutional responsibilities, confirm the allegations that he has made, and given pointers to some of the areas which need to be addressed. And that is the basis now upon which, one, the committee will be calling the individuals whom have been cited, and two, strengthening its case for the purposes of a committee inquiry. We already have draft terms of reference for that committee inquiry, running parallel to what we are at this point calling a fact-finding phase. So as you correctly point out, we will be calling the Minister of Public Enterprises, because Mr. De Ruyter placed squarely at his doorstep the knowledge of a senior politician and or ministers who are involved and aware of what is going on insofar as corruption, and also possibly facilitating that corruption at Eskom. So he says he reported it to him as the shareholder representative minister. This ministerial advisor, Dr. Mufamadi, as well, he says he informed. This becomes important because in what did Dr. Mufamadi do with that information as a ministerial advisor? Is now the president aware, and what action steps have been taken? So the necessary confirmation that we needed from what he said we had gotten. Of course, we'll be engaging with the National Commission of Police as well, because Mr. De Ruyter again indicates that these matters were discussed and it was referred to a team of SABC investigators. But what is strange is these matters were all reported and brought to the attention of all these authorities as far back as May, April 2022, some June, July 2022. Yet there's been no action taken as far as we are aware. So now they have to come in and explain. The final point is the board of Eskom. Mr. De Ruyter again makes allegations about interference insofar as the board's operations are concerned, and that he did report these in terms of Section 34 reports of PRECA. Having said all of that, we will still have to engage with Mr. De Ruyter again, because One, there was a time constraints yesterday as far as what his lawyers told us. Secondly, of course, we haven't received the answers fully to the extent to which he has, we wanted. I'm going to use probably a slang phrase, SK, and say, "Izolus half clashile." Mr. De Ruyter, but at the same time, the pointers which we wanted, we received, and as I say, is confirmed now what he said in that interview, which gives us a strong basis to take these issues forward.
So I can't help but wonder in that instance, given that De Ruyter simply refused to divulge any identities for the sources that he actually made these claims about, how then are you going to ensure that you ultimately do get those names? Could the Minister of Public Enterprises, for example, or the advisor, Mr. Mufamadi, could they come there and also decide not to divulge? If that is the case, what then?
There's a difference here in that, one, Mr. De Ruyter was not subpoenaed yesterday, so he appeared before us on the basis of an invitation. Parliament Legal did advise that subpoenas are the last resort, and in correspondence to myself, Mr. De Ruyter indicated, and my assumption is that he's been following the committee's processes, that he is prepared to subject himself to the inquiry process. The inquiry process, of course, will be a structured inquiry, and oath will be taken amongst others. And at the same time, of course, the minister and the advisor, in appearing before Parliament, because they are incumbents and office bearers in government, have got a heightened burden of responsibility, to be frank and forthright. I want to say categorically that we do reserve our right to subpoena any of the individuals and entities, and so that is firmly on the table, including but not limited to Mr. De Ruyter. So as we move forward in the next 2 weeks, it's really now to deal with the initial stages of the allegations Mr. De Ruyter has made, and then to take a decision whether we will be having the inquiry or not. Because, of course, additional resources was required, and we need to make an application to the presiding officers in the event that we do proceed. I want to say, SK, obviously we do feel that it was a missed opportunity on the part of Mr. De Ruyter. It is our outlook that he should have been frank and forthright. But in confirming that in his responsibilities, he reported to the rightful entities, we have to test that. So the Hawks as well, he indicates these matters were logged with them. So the Hawks have to appear and indicate how far they are. The SIU, so because this is a very convoluted and complex space, because the reporting of criminal activities has not been at one point or one incident. There's multiple investigations taking place. What we know and can confirm is that the SIU is investigating some of these matters, and the SIU has been cooperating with us. So they've given us an update on some of the issues, and we are now allowing those investigations to run their course. Where we have an issue is on the allegations Mr. De Ruyter has made, that if he is correct in what he is saying, we expect then the minister, the advisor, the Hawks, and the National Commission of Police and Eskom to then tell us officially as institutions and persons of authority what it is that they did with that information, so that we can be satisfied that the necessary processes have unfolded. From where I are seated at this point, we do not believe that that has happened, and that is what is fundamentally worrying.
And of course, another interesting point that came about yesterday was the discussion around the intelligence, the hiring of an outside private intelligence firm to gather information around what was happening, especially with regard to organized crime at Eskom. That was quite curious. So I want to hear your view on that, Mr. Hlengwa. The money was obviously raised from private sources outside of Eskom to look into what was happening at Eskom, which is a public entity. And Mr. De Ruyter again refused to divulge who the donors were for that?
Yeah, see, it's very concerning in the sense that there's no clarity in the royal we that Mr. De Ruyter used yesterday, whether the we refers to the board and executives or it refers to a faction or a clique within Eskom, of which he would have been part of. So the board will have to next week now present the full details of that investigation, intelligence gathering exercise. That's part one. But what is of greater concern is the fact that Eskom would have relied on private external funding as a state institution, which in our view is of concern in that it outsourced its responsibility and of course obfuscated on its responsibility. So it's a dereliction of duty for an entity knowing that it's got issues and does not actually take the action steps required. It's our view, therefore, that the matters around the intelligence report have to be fully ventilated and explained from start to finish. And so at his next appearance, because Mr. De Ruyter will be called in again, he will have to, take us through that process in terms of how they did that. And at the same time, the board has to do the same. It is curious how they would rely on private funding because we have just come from an era of heightened state capture. And yesterday I indicated that we don't believe that state capture is over. Because if you've got private interest facilitating sensitive and serious investigations, including but not limited to intelligence gathering, then you've got a problem. Particularly when those people are hidden, because what are their interests? Do they come in good faith? On what basis would they come in good faith? Because ultimately, Eskom must account for itself as a public entity. So next week, Wednesday, the matter of that investigation is on the agenda as well.
Mr. Hlengwa, as we wait with bated breath to see how the next part of this unfolds, we thank you for your time here on Morning Live. Mr. Mkhuleko Hlengwa is Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts Chairperson, speaking to us about what happened yesterday when the committee heard from former Eskom CEO De Ruyter about some of the allegations that he had made in a television interview earlier this year.